The Morgan Report with David Morgan.
David Morgan, themorganreport.com, week ending October 23rd, 2020. Well, first up, I like to talk about the markets. And this week saw on the 21st, the U.S. dollar index weakened, and it actually left a gap. Dollars index is obviously moving lower. On the positive side, copper reached a new 2-year high. I'm starting to turn bullish on copper vis-a-vis what copper itself is doing. However, for me to really turn bullish, I'd like it to see it take out the 2018 high at 330. We're currently under 320 and maintain that on a monthly basis. But as I said, a fact is a fact, and copper did reach a new 2-year high. And on the most important market, well, commodities is oil, but as far as financials, it's the bond market. And there's been a rally in bond yields, which higher yields mean lower bond prices, as you all know. And the 30-year Treasury yield climbed above its 200-day moving average. So there's a little bit of pressure on the bond market as far as price of the bonds, but yields are rising. And not that dramatically, 200-day moving average. This week, I thought I'd do something a bit different. Those that are members of the premium service for the Morgan Report are well aware of what we've been writing there about the World Economic Forum. This comes from Mercola.com, and the title of this is "The Global Takeover is Underway." And this is just a quick overview of something produced by the World Economic Forum, and they talk about the world in 2030 or by 2030, according to the WEF. You will own nothing, and you will be happy about it. Instead, you'll rent everything you need, and it will be delivered right to your front door by drone. The U.S. won't be the world's leading superpower. Instead, a handful of countries will dominate together. And you won't die for an organ donor. Rather than transplanting organs from deceased donors, custom organs will be 3D printed on demand. You will eat much less meat. Meat will be an occasional treat, not a staple. As detailed in many previous articles, this is WEF, World Economic Forum's articles, or linked from there. Eating meat's a foolhardy idea, not just for health reasons, but also environmental ones. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. As a result, countries will have to prepare to welcome more refugees. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. To eliminate fossil fuels, there will be a global price on carbon. Rather than promoting organic and regenerative farming, the technocratic elite are pushing something called zero-budget natural farming. Bill Gates, part of the scheme. How rare. Basically, carbon is being turned into a tradable commodity, replacing the actual farm output of grains and other crops. Farmers with higher carbon in their soil will make more money than those with carbon-poor soil. Meanwhile, they'll make nothing from the crops they grow. You could be preparing to go to Mars. Scientists, quote, will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space, end quote, thus opening up the possibility of becoming a space-faring race and colonizing other planets. And last, and certainly not least in these bullet points, Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. Just a few other comments here. For decades, war and the threat of war have enriched the technocratic elite and kept the population going along with their agenda. War and physical attacks have been repeatedly used to foist ever more draconian restrictions upon us and remove our liberties. The Patriot Act, rammed through in the aftermath of 9/11, is just one egregious example. Today, pandemics and the threat of infections, outbreaks, are the new tools of war and social control. For years, Gates has prepared the global psyche for a new enemy. Deadly, invisible viruses that can crop up at any time. And the only way to protect ourselves is by giving up old-fashioned notions of privacy, liberty, and personal decision-making. We need to maintain our distance from others, including family members. We need to wear masks, even in our own homes. We need to close down small businesses and work from home. We need to vaccinate the entire global population and put stringent travel restrictions into place. We must track and trace everyone, every moment of the day and night, and install biometric readers into everyone's bodies to identify who the potential risk carriers are. Infected people are the new threat. This is what the technocratic elite wants you to believe, and they've succeeded to convince a shocking ratio of the global population of this in just a few short months. If you're unfamiliar with the term technocracy, be sure to go back and listen to my interview with Patrick Wood, author of Technocracy Rising. Let me digress there. Pat and I have been friends for years. He used to live in the Coeur d'Alene area, once stayed over from where I'm currently sitting. Met him very early on, and I've had Pat on our mastermind at least twice, if not three times, to go through in detail how he sees this whole technocracy unfolding before our very eyes. Next up, something dear to me and those that follow our work here, a new digital currency system is underway. Two of the last pieces of the totalitarian takeover will be the transition to an all-digital currency linked to digital IDs. Almost verbatim what I wrote a couple months ago in the Morgan Report. With that, enforcement of social rules will be more or less ensured, as your finances, indeed your entire identity, can easily be held hostage if you fail to comply. You can do anything you want as long as it's exactly what we want you to do. Just think how easy it'll be to automate it, such that if you fail to get your mandated vaccine or post something undesirable on the internet, your bank account becomes unavailable. Your biometric ID won't allow you into an office building or your office building. On August 13, 2020, an article on the Federal Reserve website discusses the supposed benefits of a central bank digital currency. There's general agreement among experts that most major countries will implement a central bank digital currency within the next 2 to 4 years. An all-digital currency system also plays into social engineering, as it can be used to incentivize desired behaviors, very similar to what China is doing with their social credit system. For example, you might get a certain amount of digital currency, but you will have to buy a certain item or perform a particular task within a certain time frame. Many uninformed people will believe that these new CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, will be very similar to existing cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, but they are seriously mistaken. Bitcoin is a decentralized and rational strategy to opt out of the existing central bank control system, while the CBDCs will be centralized and completely controlled by the central banks. I may differ slightly on that, but let's let that go for now. If you've been intrigued by investing in Bitcoin as a safer alternative to the stock market, but just didn't know how to understand, the video below explains it. I'll leave that alone. The globalist, and I'll wrap this up. While I mentioned Gates a lot, remember this is written by Dr. McCullough, not by me. I'm reading it. He's not acting alone, of course. It just so happens that as you trace the connections between decision makers of the world, you'll find them in an astonishing number of places. For example, October 2019, Gates co-hosted a pandemic preparedness simulation for a quote-unquote novel coronavirus known as Event 201, along with Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and the World Economic Forum. My, how rare. The event eerily predicted what would happen just 10 weeks later when COVID-19 appeared. Gates and the World Economic Forum, in turn, both partnered with the United Nations, which, while keeping a relatively low profile, appears to be at the heart of the globalist takeover agenda. And Gates is also the largest funder of the World Health Organization, the medical branch of the UN, while the World Economic Forum is the social and economic branch of the UN. Other key partners that play important roles in the implementation of the globalist agenda include Rockefeller Foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies, the UN Foundation, George Soros' Open Society, 2030 Vision, UN's 2030 Sustainable Development, Google, MasterCard, Salesforce. The fourth industrial revolution is a tectonic agenda. In decades past, technocrats, the global, mostly unelected elite that steer the management of the nations worldwide, called for a new world order. Today, the new world order has largely been replaced with terms like the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the slogan, Build Back Better. All these terms and slogans refer to the same long-term globalist agenda to dismantle democracy and national borders in favor of a global governance by unelected leaders and the reliance on technological surveillance rather than the rule of law. So I will leave it there. You can find this on the Mercola website, mercola.com. You can find it and read the rest of it. There's not much else to say. I've covered a lot of this over the ensuing weeks on my weekly perspectives, written about it in the paid version of the Morgan Report, and also talked about it quite extensively on the interviews I've done lately, especially about the central bank digital currencies that are up and coming. On the metals front, not much to comment on, really. There is a consolidation/correction taking place in both the gold and silver markets. The shares showed some life earlier in the week. They really haven't followed through. All things considered, it probably looks like there's more downside pressure than upside pressure at this point in time. I haven't lost my enthusiasm for the precious metals. Will be interesting to see what happens post-election, U.S. election. I think the Canadians vote next week, early next week. And we'll have to see in a few weeks after the election situation develops further one way or another. So leave it there. I will make one or two more comments and then close it down. So let me close out this week, letting you know again that the Silver Manifesto is available at the website, thesilvermanifesto.com. I did an interview with Freedom Hack this morning, and he was partway into the Silver Manifesto himself, and he brought up a couple of quotes that are in the book. I'm not going to give you the one that he read. I'm going to give you a new one. This is in Chapter 1, A Monetary History of Silver, 3400 BC to 1792. And on page 7 of this book, second paragraph, in What Makes a Monetary System Sound? A clear and concise answer is, quote, any monetary system that a government is not involved with, end quote. A sound monetary system inherently rises in a market economy with checks and balances that prevent monetary inflation. A more detailed answer, which history has shown us time and time again, is that the market would choose a commodity money, notably gold and or silver. This shouldn't be confused with the monetary system of the United States during the period of 1913 to 1971, as this was not a true gold standard. I'll leave it at that paragraph. A lot of information in this book, and it is the baby of me and Chris Marchese. I will also sign off with what I haven't said in quite a few weeks. There's nothing more powerful than the truth. Sure could use some in this upcoming presidential election, but it's not the politician's strong suit, I would say. Regardless, I do wish you all the best under these very interesting times, and I'll be back with you next week with another weekly perspective. This is David Morgan, themorganreport.com. And again, the book can be purchased at thesilvermanifesto.com.